Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kenneth, and welcome to the Anyhow channel where I talk about some interesting things and some interesting knickknacks. Today, I'm here to talk to you about the all-new limited edition Lotoo Paw Gold Touch Titanium. Back in 2018, Lotoo first made waves in the world by introducing their brand new Lotoo Paw Gold Touch. This is their first flagship DAP that is actually fully touchscreen that has its integrated Lotoo OS. Today, we are not going to explore this model, but rather we're going to take a look at the Paw Gold Touch Titanium. Material choice has always been a big component for manufacturers. Some chose it for their aesthetic quality, while others choose it for their sonic properties. Astor and Kern famously, back when they released their SP1000, had it in two flavors, stainless steel and copper. Kain, with the Kain N8, actually released a black brass version as well as a stainless steel edition. Now for the Lotoo Paw Gold Touch Titanium, as the name implies, it is actually made of titanium. And to be very specific, it is made of TA15, which is actually a titanium alloy. With that said, putting things into perspective, based on these materials, the hardness of each material is actually very different. For example, stainless steel actually comes in on a 4 on the Mohs hardness rating, while copper actually comes in on the 3. Brass, on the other hand, is between the 3 or 4, and is actually an alloy of copper and zinc. Now, for titanium, pure titanium is actually coming at a hardness of 6, because TA15, it is an alloy of many different metals, which it's quite hard to pronounce the names. There's so many weird names. I can't pronounce it, but I don't think it's at a mole rating of 6, but still, it is still significantly harder than stainless steel. So what happens to titanium when it's being machined? Now, when you want to machine a block of titanium and to form this chassis, you naturally need to use a drill bit to actually carve along to form the shape of this DAP. But what happens when the material is too hard, such as titanium? Things such as springback and chatter will take place. So what basically this means is that when the drill bit actually comes over here to try to remove some material, there is actually pushback from the material, and this actually causes many surface imperfections, thus leading to much lesser yield when it comes to machining titanium. In terms of raw material costs, titanium is actually 9 times more expensive per kg compared to stainless steel. Now, for the Lotoo Paw Gold Touch Titanium, Lotoo actually has taken an extra step to protect the titanium from any sort of corrosion, although it's already very corrosion resistant. They actually have PVD coated the chassis of the titanium body to give it a little bit more corrosion resistance. In the retail package, Lotoo actually has included a cube of TA15. I have actually put it in a separate image somewhere in front of my face right now, and this is actually a very nice touch. I really appreciate such gifts when manufacturers actually include more than what's actually supposed to be given in inbox. Design. The single biggest change in the design of the Paw Gold Touch Titanium versus the Paw Gold Touch would be the material color, titanium grey versus anodized black. Carried over from the Paw Gold Touch is the beautiful golden volume wheel with the edged Apollo Sun pattern. I have always enjoyed continuity in design. I think it builds a lot of brand character. In the case of Lotoo, the Apollo pattern can be traced all the way back to the first flagship, the Lotoo Paw Gold. The sides of the titanium sports the quick control functions: on-off, forward, play, back button. As a right-handed person, when I hold the DAP, these buttons intuitively fall to the control of my thumb. Very easy one-handed usage. The bottom of the titanium has a full-size SD card slot with a ceiling flap. Just beside it is the USB Type-C port. Now, this USB Type-C port not only allows the titanium to be charged with any USB Type-C cable, it also allows the titanium to act as a DAC amp. Really quite a nifty feature. Under the golden volume control features the hypnotic breathing light, which pulses when the music is played. The guts of the LPGT titanium, it features the tried and true AKM AK4497 EQ DAC, which features superb performance. It also has an upsampling chip, which is called XRC. This chip is the AKM AK4137 EQ. I don't have much upsampling experience in depth. The only ones that I have is Sony's DCHX and Lotoo's XRC. In terms of preference, I actually prefer the Lotoo XRC over the Sony's DCHX, as it sounds more natural with better dynamics without the artificial edge. Lotoo features a very easy to use GUI that is very intuitive. It features an extremely quick boot time, Song imports are also instantaneous without the need to manually select to update the cache of the DAP. It sorts music in the usual artists, albums and songs. It has also a quick swipe down feature for you to access important features such as XRC, gain or Bluetooth. One of the defining features of Lotoo would be the parametric EQ. Honestly, I've never been a fan of EQ as they tend to introduce distortion to music and can take away from realism. But for parametric EQ on the Lotoo Paw Go Touch Titanium, it is quite different. It allows you to tweak EQ to your heart's desire without much noticeable distortion. I'm not an expert on parametric EQ, but I do know that with this sort of EQ, you actually get a higher bandwidth. Well, that's at least what I read. So because of that, it actually does not distort too much. Now, talking about sound, Lotoo always have had a house sound that is very clear, high resolution and transparent. It does not warm the music up in any artificial way, and it basically just replaces music as intended. Well, I personally find that the Paw Go Touch Titanium versus the original Paw Go Touch, the high frequencies actually it's a bit smoother and has a bit more resolution compared to the original. Also, the mid-range has a bit more texture, while the bass is a bit more taut. Now, this is not to say that the original Paw Go Touch is lacking in any way. It just really is just a bit better than the original Paw Go Touch. Also, just to add on, the new Lotoo Paw Go Touch Titanium has a new increased output to 720 mWh at the 3.5mm jack. Now, this is a little bit more compared to the old previous Paw Go Touch, which comes in at 500 milliwatts. Now, power isn't everything. One thing that's very impressive on the Lotoo Paw Go Touch range is the very obvious, very silent and very dark background. So, I'm just saying this from my own experience. I was actually listening to one of my favorite bands, My Chemical Romance. Please don't judge me. Yeah, so in their very popular song called Welcome to the Black Parade, the starting G note, it's a very distinct piano G, followed by something I've never ever experienced before in my life until I heard it on the Paw Go Touch. There is actually a metronome ticking and talking at the back of the track. So I've only noticed this because the background of the Paw Go Touch series is actually pretty dark for me to notice such a minute detail. So I think it's actually very impressive, and yeah, I really do enjoy this. With regards to soundstage, as to all Lotoo products, they sound expensively wide with actually very good depth and layering details. So if you really want to enjoy recordings that have a very large dynamic range, such as orchestral works, these DAP actually will give you that kind of depth that you are looking for, providing that the recording has actually that much details. Now, let me address the elephant in the room. Does the Paw Go Touch Titanium stream? No, it does not. Well, this is because it actually does not have Android inside. It's basically its own OS, Lotoo OS inside. So what this means is that you actually get a very fast GUI. Everything is very responsive on the player, but you do not get the apps associated with Android on the Lotoo DAP. But this is something that you can mitigate against, and I really rather use it this way. Basically, you can actually use the Lotoo Paw Go Touch as a portable DAC amp. You can actually connect your mobile phone via Type-C to Type-C or Lightning to Type-C to the Lotoo Paw Go Touch and use the app on your phone to play or stream songs and for it to be output by the DAP. Well, I actually like this experience actually quite a bit better. Why? It's very simply because you get the latest apps on the Play Store or Apple Play Store, or is it Play Store? Yeah, Apple App Store, and you get all the latest features from your Spotify, Tidal, whatever you want to use, that sort of thing. Well, if you use Android-based DAP, what I often find is that they do not actually update the Android firmware very often. So, maybe some of the older players are already quite outdated in that sense. So therefore, your Spotify or Tidal apps, they don't get updated as well. So these are one of the things in the audiophile world where it's actually really a give and take. For me, I actually do use it this way, using it via the phone to the DAP, using it as a DAC amp. Also, I don't use Bluetooth for the Lotoo Paw Go Touch too often. I don't actually like to use Bluetooth on my phone to the Paw Go Touch to play back music. if you paid so much money for such a DAP, why do you want to degrade the sound signal using Bluetooth? I mean, they do work, but sending music files through your phone to the DAP often just results in a very flat, lifeless sound, which is not something I like. I rather play it through itself as a DAP or through the Type-C to Type-C or Lightning Type-C cable, so you actually have a more lively sound, something that sounds a bit more realistic actually. Next, I'd like to share some of the pairings that I've actually listened together with the Paw Gold Touch Titanium. Let me just name a few IEMs that I actually have listened to with it. First would be Sony N3, XBA N3. It is basically a single dynamic driver plus balanced armature earphone, followed by the legendary MDR EX1000 by Sony as well, followed by the Detail Audio Dream XLS, Final A8000, and Fur Audio M5. I will give you some impressions right now. Well, for the M5, it is a very neutral, natural resolving earphone with strong bass impact, and it's basically of a tubeless hybrid design. Well, it has a single electrostat, 3 balanced armature drivers, and also a bass dynamic driver for bass. Well, this earphone actually sounds very holographic out of the head that extends deep with good balanced rumble. Mid vocal sounds very natural and it's very clear. Basically, the earphone is actually very non-fatiguing overall. Now, to get the Paw Gold Touch, well, the soundstage of it becomes very holographic. You get a lot of depth, width, and height in terms of soundstage. Sound signature is actually very balanced. There's actually a lot of details going on. Bass is punchy and actually goes quite deep with sub-bass rumble. Vocals are very natural with very detailed higher mids, and there is also a slightly forward presentation of the mid-range. Highs are non-fatiguing and it's actually very smooth. Actually, most of the time you don't notice it, and I think that is how treble should be handled. It needs to be present but not overbearing. So with the Paw Gold Touch Titanium, it actually plays to the characteristics of it very well. It basically gives the earphone a lot of control, not imposing too much of the DAP's character. Basically, because it's so transparent, it makes the earphone actually sound better without adding too much to it. It's very truthful to recording, and it's how the engineers actually intended for the music to be sound. Next would be the Sony XBA N3. As I mentioned, I actually listen a lot of My Chemical Romance, and because of these type of recording, they actually are more compressed. I think the tonality of this earphone really suit such newer, more modern compressed recording types. So together the Paw Gold, with regards to the Paw Gold Touch, it actually drives the entry very well. So what you get is you hear that there is a lot of control with the lower bass and mid-range. I think this is due to the dynamic driver doing these two components for this earphone. So basically the bass actually slams very hard and it's actually very fast and quick as well. There is no delayed rumble, nor does the bass note bleeds into the mid-range. So on the whole, I think it really pairs quite well with the N3. So for the Sony EX1000, basically it has impressive imaging, soundstage, and separation. It is relatively flat tuning, good resolution by today's standard, and it's basically an open IEM. Now, paired with the Lotoo Paw Gold Touch, in the right environment, you get very textured sub-bass, which leans into a linear mid-bass. Mid-range is a little thin as the Paw Gold Touch Titanium does not color the mid-range much, and because of its open design, it actually gets very airy highs. The EX1000 actually sounds very well driven by the Paw Gold Touch Titanium. If you actually provide the EX1000 with DAP that does not have sufficient power, bass tends to be a bit flabby, but on the whole, they pair rather well together. Now, next earphone that I paired with the Paw Gold Touch Titanium would be the Dita Dream XLS. Let me give you some characteristics. Coating Twister 6. The Dream XLS is neutral natural. It has high details, but also very easygoing. You know, combination with it together with the Pogo Touch, it has a very holographic soundstage, and you know the sub bass basically rumbles, and there is also a very tight mid bass punch together with good control and excellent separation for the mid. So basically, you know, when I'm listening to it, the bass and sub bass, they do not bleed into the mid range, so they are actually very well layered and well separated. Neutral lower mids and also quite revealing upper mids with an excellent sense of retrieval. Basically, I think for the Pogo Touch Titanium, it basically drives the Dream XLS extremely well. So you get a very good sense of control. Bass impact, speed of the sound is actually very fast. So basically, it's very quick pret. And overall, you know, I honestly really like this combination a lot. It's very well, it's quite fatiguing free listening for a long time. And lastly, the final A8000. The final 8000, basically this earphone responds very well to power. Insufficient power results in less 3D sound with some treble roll-off and tight bass. Well, the A8000 basically has elegant, delicate highs, very good resolving and transparent mid-range, and a very fast extended bass. With the Pogo Touch, you know, it basically has a very 3D soundstage with deep extended bass rumble. Basically, the bass punch very hard and very fast. And then mid-range is it's very neutral. It's not overly thick. It's quite uncolored in the mid-range. And what I must say for the highs with this combination is very crisp and airy. So you get a lot of micro details with this earphone. So now, in conclusion, the Pogo Touch Titanium is an incredible DAP, and you know, for a special limited edition, I think it actually performed very well. It actually improved slightly upon the already fantastic Pogo Touch. Basically, I like how the way it drives earphones, and it's basically, well, you know, you can just basically push any earphone without any problem.